Hi all, welcome back to our channel. So today's topic is that security and privacy in cloud. So under this topic, we are going to see is about end-to-end access control, common attack vectors and threats. So let us dive into the topic. So the first one is that end-to-end access control. So end-to-end access control is nothing but it's a security method that protects the data at all stages of storage and communication. It ensures that data is secure from the time it's created until it's received by the intended recipient. So if I want to change or if I want to send the data between the client and the server is that I'll be just saying some kind of uh, data which will be sent through the proper channel. So that is what we used to call as an end-to-end access control. So in this end-to-end access control, we used to form so much of access methods and so much of access type. And in order to overcome such methods, we are having so many types in this topic. So let us see one by one. But before that, an end-to-end access control is only for authorized users. And here we'll be using some comprehensive security, data protection throughout life cycle, multi-factor authentication. Like example scenario where end-to-end access control is important is that, say for example in healthcare, like we have to ensure such that the patient's privacy by restricting the access to medical records based on the user roles and authorization levels throughout the healthcare system. Another example in terms of financial system is that protecting financial transactions by controlling access to banking applications from user login to data processing and reporting. So let us see what are the types of access control. First one is that discretionary access control, that is called as DAC. Second one, mandatory access control, MAC. Third one, role-based access control, that is RBAC. And last one, privileged access management. So the first one, what is that discretionary access control? So what is meant by discretionary access control is that, so here we'll be decentralizing the security decisions to resource owners. The owner could be a documents creator or department system administrator, or now you can use the access control system to determine who can access that particular resource. So here you can see in this diagram, there will be an owner and some specific users or groups who can access that particular object. So this is the common sum diagram. And here, these tables will be paired into individual or group identifiers with their own access privileges. And advantages of using the DAC is that conceptual simplicity, that is access control list a pair of users with the access privileges. As long as the user in the table has some appropriate privileges, they may access the resource. And second one is that responsiveness to business needs. Since policy change requests do not need to go through a security administration, decision making is more nimble and aligned with the business needs. And drawbacks of this DAC is that first one, over or underprivileged users. A user can be a member of multiple or nested work groups. Conflicting permissions may over or underprivilege the user. Second one is that limited control. Security administrators, cannot easily see how resources are shared within the organization. And although viewing an access control list is straightforward, seeing one user's privileges requires searching every access control list. And compromise security is that by giving some users discretion over access policies, the resulting inconsistencies and missing oversight could undetermine the organization's security posture. So this is all about discretionary access control. And next one is that mandatory access control. So here in this mandatory access control, we'll be using some central managed model to provide some highest level of security. A non-discriminatory system, MAC, reserves control over access policies to a centralized security administration, and MAC works by applying security labels to resources and individuals. So these security labels consist of two elements. First one is that classification and clearance. Second one, component. So here you can see the users will be having between the administrator and the user, there will be some clearance level. So clearance level, or another one between the OS, there will be some access based classification. So these are nothing but the MAC relies on a classification system like restricted or some top secret or secret messages, that describes a resource sensitivity. So user security clearances determine what kind of resources they may access. And from system admin to OS, they can able to configure directly. And compartment. So what does it mean by compartment is that a resource compartment describes a group of people, like it may be of department or a project team, etc. in a particular industry or in a college or whatever it may be. It allows access only to certain compartment. So here from the OS, the data will be fetched by the OS and it can able to provide access. And similar to that here, the administrator, what he will be doing is that he can able to access the data through some confidentiality levels. So a user may only access the resource if the security label matches the resource security label. And MAC originated in the military and intelligence community. Beyond the national security world, MAC implements to protect some companies' most sensitive resources. Say, for example, banks or insurers may use MAC to control access to customer account data. So the advantages of using this mandatory access control is that enforceability and then compartmentalization. What is meant by enforceability is that MAC administrators set some organization-wide policies that users cannot override, making enforcement easier. Uh, Compartmentalization is nothing. Security labels limit the exposure of each resource to a subset of the user base. The drawback of this using the MAC is that collaboration and management burden. Like collaboration in the sense like MAC achieves security by constraining communication. Highly collaborative organizations may need a less restrictive approach. So management burden is here. A dedicated organization structure must manage the creation and maintenance of security label. So this is about the MAC. Next one is that role-based access control, or we used to call as RBAC. So here in this role-based access control, it grants access privileges based on the work that individual users do. A popular way of implementing is that least privilege policies, that RBAC, which can limit towards the resource users need for the job. So here the users will be assigned some user assignment to a particular role, and based on the session or the user roles and session roles, it will be just worked on, and then the permission can be accessed through various operations and the privileges will be accessed within that particular data. And here like implementing RBAC some requires some different roles within the organization and determining whether and what degree those roles should have access to each resource. Advantages of using a role-based access control sets are flexibility, ease of maintenance, centralized non-discriminatory policies, lower risk exposure. So flexibility is that administrator can optimize an RBA system by assigning users to multiple roles, creating hierarchies to account for level of responsibility, and he can able to create some privileges to reflect the business rules and defining a relationship between the roles. And what is meant by ease of maintenance is that with well-defined roles, the day-to-day management is a routine onboarding, offboarding, or cross-boarding of user roles. Centralized policy like security professions can set some consistent RBAC policy across the organization. Lower risk exposure. So under RBAC, users only have access to the resources their roles justify. And the drawback of role-based access control is that complex deployment, balancing security with simplicity, layered roles and permission. So complex deployment is that the web of responsibilities and relationship in larger enterprises make defining roles so challenging that it spawned its own subfield. And balancing security with simplicity is that more roles and more granular roles may provide some greater security, but administering a system where users have a dozen of overlapping roles becomes so much difficult. And last one, layered roles and permission. Here, you can assign too many roles to users. Along with that, it increases the risk of overproliferating users. So this is all about role-based access control. And next one is that privileged access management, or we used to call as a PAM. So, a recent study, like I think psychotic centrify study, is found that 53% of the organization experienced theft of privileged credential, and 85% of those theft resulted in breaches of critical system. So, privileged access management is a type of actually role-based access control, specifically designed to defend against these type of attacks. So here what I'll be doing is that based on the least privilege access principle, a PAM gives administrator limited access privileges on a needed basis, and these systems enforce network security best practices such as eliminating shared password and manual processes. So here you can see there will be some users and who can able to use the particular session or timestamp or whatever may be through the proper security channel. For each and every user or the particular role for the client, they'll be providing some access permission. Only through that only we can able to access all those resources. So advantages of using PAM is that reduce the threat surface, minimizing permission creep, and last one, auditable logging. So reduce the threat safe is that common password, shared credential, and manual process are commonplace, even the best run IT departments. Imposing access control best practice which eliminate these security risks. And the drawback of this privileged access management is that internal resistance, complexity, and cost. So internal resistance, just as doctors make the worst patients, IT professionals can be resistant to tighten security measures. And implementing PAM requires investment in time and money within the already constrained IT departments. So this is all about the PAM. So these all comes under the types of access control. So the next topic is that common attack vectors and threat. So what is meant by attack vector? So attack vector is a way in which the cyber criminals use to break into a network system throughout the access to a firewall, and they can take advantage of weakness. So attack vectors refer to the various paths or methods that attackers use to gain unauthorized access to a system, network, or application to exploit some vulnerabilities. It can be steal data or cause the damage. So here some compromised credential will be used. The most common type of access credential is that username and password. So compromised credential occurs when user credential are exposed to some unauthorized entities, and they can able to give intruders inside access, bypassing perimeter security and complicating the deduction. So how to avoid this type of cyber attack is that common username and weak password can lead to compromised credential. So that the enterprise must have effective password policy and suitable password strength. And second is that by using two-factor authentication, we have seen already so many types of authentication: two-factor, multi-factor, single-factor authentication. Yeah. Via trusted second factor, we can reduce the number of breaches due to compromised credential within the organization. And next one is that so here you can see in this diagram how the most common threats which occurs in the industry is that compromised access, insufficient security measures, social engineering attacks, unpatched software vulnerabilities, intrusion errors, and configuration errors. So so we will see now. Just we have seen about the compromised credential. So next is that we are going to see is about a weak and stolen credential. So weak and stolen credential reuse and make credential exposure a gateway for the initial attackers and lateral movement within your network. And some application and protocol that transmit the login credential over your network, the proper encryption pose a significant security threat. An attacker connected to your network can intercept these credentials and exploit them. For example, advisors could steal active directory credentials such as target breach and propagate their attack through some enterprise payment network. So how to avoid this type of weak stolen credential is that we can able to use some encrypt protocols and like transmit login credential using some encrypted protocols to prevent interception by attackers, and you can employ multi-factor authentication. So multi-factor authentication, if you are implementing in the sense to add some additional layer in the security, like it will be harder for attackers to compromise some applications and system with a single password. And to avoid the next one is that monitor password hygiene. So we have to track the password usage across the enterprise to identify high-risk users and devices. This helps manage entitlements and reduce the risk associated with compromised accounts. And we can able to implement some zero trust architecture. So we have to validate every user connection to every device and every application to prevent them from actors from operating another radar within the network. And next one is that zero-day vulnerability. So zero-day vulnerabilities is an unknown until the breach happens. Hence the name zero day, as no time elapses between the attack and when the vulnerability is made public. If a developer has not released a patch for the zero-day vulnerability before a hacker exploits, the following attack is known as the zero-day attack. Okay, and next one is that missing or poor encryption. So poor encryption here, the data encryption translates the data into another form that only people with access to a secret key or password can read. It protects the digital data confidentiality. Strong encryption must be applied to data at rest and where suitable in processing. And here, to avoid this type of attack, you can go for like some using some ensure sensitive data is encrypted at rest in transit and processing. Don't rely on low level encryption or assume that the following compliance with the data is securely encrypted. Next one is that misconfiguration. So misconfiguration here, it occurs when there is an error in a system configuration such as setup pages or enable, or user uses some default username and password. And here the misconfigured system and apps present an easy entry point for the attackers to exploit. So to avoid these type of cyber attack, you can put some procedures and systems in place that tighten your configuration process and use configuration standards wherever possible. So monitor the application and device settings and comparing these to recommend best practices which reveals the threat of misconfigured devices across the network. And next one is that ransomware. So here in this ransomware, it's a form of cyber extortion in which the users are unable to access the encrypted data until a ransom is paid. So users are shown some instructions for how to pay a fee to get the decryption fee. The cost can range from a few $100 to 1,000. Payable to cyber criminals maybe in Bitcoin also. And here, to avoid these kind of ransomware, you can educate your users on some ransomware techniques and continually assess their understanding, including making them aware of social engineering tactics. And we can employ some email protection to protect against some common ransomware exploits and stop access to the compromised websites. And next, last but not least, is that phishing attack. So I hope all might have known about the phishing attack. So here the phishing attack in which the targets are contacted by email or through telephone or through some text messages or some SMS by someone posting a legitimate institution to lure individuals into providing sensitive data such as personally identifiable information, banking or credential information and password. It continues to be one of the most effective social engineering attack vendors because it is updated in the real time. And here you can see so many ads which is come across the television or some in radio. They used to say repeatedly these kind of phishing attack. So in order to avoid these kind of phishing attack, you know, it's best to call the organization you receive in a, through email or through phone call or you through messages to determine if it's a phishing scam, or say that you will call them back if they provide a reference for the call. Or meanwhile, you can measure through web browsing and email and click through the various behavior for users and provide valuable risk insight for your enterprise. Okay, so this is about the common types of attack vendors and threats which is available. Other than that, there is brute force attack, DDoS attack, malicious insider attack. I hope all might have heard this kind of brute force attack. Yes, DDoS, that is distributed denial of service attack, and malicious intruder. Okay, and next is that uh, these are some of the real-time, some recent cyber security attacks. So here in Infosys, what happened is that uh, like they experienced a data breach in the year 2023, which affects its US unit. And also, like Infosys mechanism system, this breach leads to some unavailability of several applications, and the company is still investigating what has happened in that particular now Infosys. And next one, Indian Council of Medical Research, it's ICMR. So here also some data breach exposed about the health data. Around 815 million Indian citizens, their data were exposed in October 2016. So this breach was caused by a threat actor named PWN0001, who claimed to have the data for sale. And next one is that Hyundai Motor Europe. In Feb 2024, like Hyundai Motor was hit by a ransomware attack named Black Basta, where the attacker claims to have stolen 3 uh, terabyte of data cooperated. And recently, like in Boeing, like in China, in November 2024, it reported some cyber incident that was attacked by Lockbit ransomware gang. Confirmed that the incident did not affect flight safety. So not so much attack, but it was a little bit tough in Boeing. So how to protect these kind of from organization or from attack vectors is that you can go for some network segmentation, intrusion detection and prevention system, antivirus, as well as you can go for some encryption. Like network segmentation is nothing but it is defined as the process of dividing a computer network into a smaller isolated segments or subnetworks. Sometimes the network segmentation is also referred to as the network isolation or network segregation, where each segment is separated from other segments by network devices such as routers, switches, or a firewall. Second one, intrusion detection and prevention system is that here it's a network security application, as we all know, that which monitors regularly network or system activities for malicious activity. The major functions of intrusion prevention system is that is to identify malicious activity, collect information about the activity, report, and then attempt to block or to stop it. Next one is that we all know like antivirus software, right? You can go for some antivirus software which helps to protect the computer system from viruses and malwares. It detects the virus in the computer system and destroys them. It also protects the computer system from specific malware. So encryption, so it is a method of preserving data confidentiality by transforming it into the ciphertext, which can only be decoded by the unique some decryption key, or maybe secret key or public or private key, which is produced during the encryption or before. Okay. The conversion of some plain text to ciphertext is that encryption. So this was discussed already in the unit 1, like basics of cryptography. If not, you can just go through that particular video, that unit 1, basics of cryptography. So this is all about, so we have seen about the like end-to-end access control, what are the types of access control, so how the diagrammatic representation was there, and we have seen the attack vectors and how to avoid them, and what are the various types of attacks which is rolling around the world. Okay, so thank you all, and I hope you would have seen this topic. So thank you so much, and we will see in the next video the continuation of unit 3. So thank you so much.